All right, Ray, I want you to check this out. Look on the screen right here. I don't know if you can see it's a little bit blurry, but it says market adjustment of $10,000. And I'll tell you that this is at a Ford dealership. And I want to give you, and this was just filmed just a week ago. I want to give you a guess of what kind of vehicle Ford that is in such high demand right now that they would put, this dealership would put a $10,000 market adjustment on it.
What do they have that's in that high of a demand? It's not one of their EVs. What the hell else do they have? Is it an Escape?
I'm gonna go ahead and roll this a little bit so you can see it. $10,000 market adjustment. Total price is $80,800. Now you can see what it is.
It's a Bronco.
It's a Bronco, and this is blowing my mind right here that we have stopped production on a Bronco, and then you have one of the highest day supply of vehicles that Ford actually has on their dealer lots right now. And this dealership, and this is not a 2025, this is a 2024. And they have a $10,000 market adjustment on this thing. This is absolutely ridiculous. And one of the things that we can see that is a major problem with a lot of these dealerships, and we can talk a little bit about what we're going into with these tariffs, with potential price increases, and maybe what dealerships are trying to get a hold of again right now. Maybe they're looking back to say, okay, when times were tough for getting vehicles, when prices were up, then we could take a little bit more advantage of the consumer. Do you feel like dealerships are going to go back to that a little bit, and this is just an example of it?
Well, first, let me say that in the nicest way possible, that dealer management team should be shot for because it's a 2024. It is, and I get it. You've probably heard me say this a million times. A dealer can't get what they don't ask for. So the hope would be that somebody that just crawled out from under a rock, hasn't seen any news, hasn't read anything, walks into the dealership and goes, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. I'll buy it for the 80 grand. That's what they're hoping for. But the reality is that that person that's been living under a rock, he ain't coming in to buy that Bronco. Okay. So people that have a better understanding as to what's going on in the market are the ones that would come in, and they would look at that and they'd go, well, this is a really cheap ass way to try and take advantage of a customer. I mean, you know what are they doing? Why would they even ask that? It's kind of off-putting if you're the customer to see something like that. So I just think that management team, they should be fired instantly, just fired, gone. Go find somebody to run your store that actually, I don't know, wants to grow your business for the long term. Now, your question, do I think we could see a reversion back to pandemic times if and when the tariffs go into effect and if the tariffs are as significant as they could be? Absolutely, yes. Dealers will once again will be unable to constrain themselves. They will opt for short-term gain, not long-term gain, and they will take advantage of whatever customers they can, and that is foolish.
And here's the thing that we're already seeing in the market, even though we haven't even experienced the price hikes yet.
Yes.
And we won't feel it. You won't start seeing it in the market. It'd probably at least a month from now that you start seeing something on dealership lots. Well, where they bake in the whatever price hikes there are. But what we're seeing right now is that negotiability is going down. I've heard it from you guys when you're going to negotiate deals. I've heard it from Tommy from his videos. He runs Delivered. He also has a car buying service that now what these dealerships are using to negotiate is like, okay, well, you better buy this right now. We're not going to lower the price because a month from now, this stuff might be 10, 20% higher. So you better buy right now. We can't take anything off. I mean, it's just not going to exist at this price anymore.
Yeah. The thinking and the rationale is if we as a dealership are going to have to pay 5% more for the replacement vehicle or 10%, whatever the number may be, Well, that means that the stuff sitting here right now is as good as 10%, worth 10% more than what it is at the moment. So tell you what, we won't charge you a penny over MSRP, but there will be no discounts. And that's the way a lot of dealers will approach it, because they'll say, you can buy this at MSRP, or you can wait, and the replacement vehicle that comes in will be $1,500 more. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to spend $1,500 more, or do you want to spend $1,500 less? And people will cave in and say, okay, I'll buy it for MSRP. The reality is, it still has the same margin baked into that car today as it did when it was invoiced to the dealer. So they're going to make much more per car, because they're going to refuse to discount cars, because the theory will be, well, our replacement car is going to be more expensive. Well, it'll just be more expensive for the new customers that come in once those vehicles get here. And you'll be negotiating off of that new MSRP as opposed to the old MSRP. It's just a way for the dealers to grab extra profit, when in reality they probably don't have to.
So here's the thing. I'm actually still in the camp that, okay, we're going to get these price hikes. Manufacturers are going to try to increase the prices, and then dealerships are going to try to increase the prices. But I feel like they're going to be met with a brick wall. I'm still there, that I feel like customers are just going to say no even harder. Like we've already seen, Ford right now has a 103-day supply of their vehicles at their dealerships. They can't afford to increase their prices from here. So manufacturers are going to have this conundrum. They're going to have to figure out, okay, do we keep our margins by increase our prices, and then that's going to cause us to make fewer sales, or do we keep our prices the same or even lower our prices? We make more sales, but we're going to make less money. So I'm very curious to see which manufacturers go which directions. We've already heard from a few manufacturers saying that they're going to pass on the savings to the consumers. I know Audi, we heard Nissan's going to start raising prices across the board. I haven't heard about Ford yet. Toyota, any of the big brands, but we've heard a few other things coming through the market. I'm very curious to see what other brands have you heard of? Have they made any decisions on actually raising prices?
I heard BMW has already stated what the price increases are going to be for the 2 and 3 series vehicles, the ones that will be impacted the most by the tariffs. And at the low end, the price increase was $1,700. At the high end, I believe it was like $2,700. And those price increases at the time they were announced are supposed to go into effect on anything invoiced after May 1st. So they're price protecting the vehicles between now and May 1st, but after May 1st, those prices are going to be going up. The thing we have to realize is that most manufacturers, profit margin wise, have been struggling a little bit over the past couple years. And we know, I mean, for instance, Stellantis's profit margin was running 12, 13%, and it's down to like 5.5%. Well, you can't, if you've lost that much profit margin over the last 2 years, can you afford to eat another 2.5%, 3%? Because from what I've heard, when you extrapolate it all out, the cost of the tariffs would impact profit margins 2.5% to 3%. So even though there could be a 25% tariff on a particular model, overall, it impacts profit margins 2.5% to 3%. So can they really afford to have their profit margins drop from 5% to 2%? Probably not. So I mean, what I foresee happening is you're not going to have an increase in MSRP on the vehicles that are tariffed the most. What will happen is instead of there being like a 25% tariff on a CX-30, for example, that's manufactured or final assemblies in Mexico, what Mazda would do is they would perhaps increase the pricing of every model by 5% to spread it across the board so that there's not a 25% increase on one model, but there'll just be like a 5% increase on all models. And my thinking is that most manufacturers are going to do something like that. So to sit here and think that the manufacturers are just going to absolutely absorb this extra cost and not ultimately pass it on to the consumer, I mean, that's just like magical thinking. You don't stay in business by not making a profit. And these are giant corporations that need to make giant profits. So ultimately the customer is going to be asked to pay for it. Then the question becomes, but can the customer afford to pay for it? Your answer and my answer would be no.
Yep.
Okay. Perhaps, because we know today only about 15% of the population feels like they can buy a new car. Well, what if that number becomes 10%? So even with higher prices, they're just catering to the 10% of the population that can actually afford to buy the car. And then the rest of the people have to deal with overpriced used cars. I mean, that's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah. So I feel like there's really only two situations from mine and yours thinking. I think it's very similar. I think the way it's going to happen may be a little bit different, but I think there's only two situations that realistically can play out is that manufacturers try to increase prices. They realize they can't. They stop selling vehicles because they just can't do it. And then they have to lower the prices back again. Or two, which is I think what you're saying, is that they increase prices and then they just further limit the amount of people that can actually buy the vehicles, in which case they might even increase the prices a little bit more to make their margins a little bit better so they can absorb the loss of sales. And that would be absolute disaster. And I don't, that would make it very tough on me as a used car dealer trying to get these trade-ins to my lot to be able to sell them. And I'll talk about that worry here in just a little bit. I did want to ask you a question. So if you ran dealerships for a very, very long time, if you were a sales manager with everything that's coming out and you know that prices are coming to you, they're going to increase right now, what are you doing with your inventory right now that doesn't have increased prices? Are you trying to make every penny you can on this inventory, or is it more of just like status quo?
I think initially I would look at it and I'd go, well, my replacement cost is going to go up. I don't know exactly how much, but let's assume it goes up 5%. So let's assume we're looking at a car that had an invoice of $30,000. So 5% of 30,000 is what, $1,500? So my suspicion would be that ultimately my replacement vehicle is going to have an invoice of $31,500 as opposed to $30,000. So initially I'm going to say to myself, well, damn it, if I'm going to have to pay more to replace this car, I want the customer to pay more or pay MSRP to buy this existing car. Because let's face it, if the invoice amount goes up 5%, the retail amount's going to go up slightly more than that. Ultimately, the customer is going to pay. Even if they raise the prices and the manufacturers and dealers realize they can't sell them at the new prices, they'll discount them some to sell them at a slightly lower price, but it's still going to be significantly higher than the pre-tariff pricing. So if I were running a dealership, I would try and hold firm at MSRP. I would also know in my heart of hearts, I ain't passing on a profit. Still got to make a profit, still got to sell cars, because the cost of waiting to sell that car isn't going down because the floor plan costs aren't going down. I will tell you the floor plan costs on the replacement car is going up because the cost of the car went up. But you still, it's it's a very cash intensive business. So you need the cash flow. As much as I would want to hold firm at MSRP, if I have to discount the car 300, 500, I still, and I can make a profit and I can make the money back in the back end, I'm selling the damn car. But I'll try and hold firm. I'll encourage my staff to try and hold firm at MSRP while also saying, and whatever you do, don't pass on any deals. So if it sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth as a manager, I would be.
And your thought processes might be wishy-washy from day to day, depending on what comes from the current administration at that day.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So my issue and my worry, and we talked a little bit about this before we even got on the show today, is that I'm very concerned about my inventory, because what we need to survive. I'm a used car dealer. What I need to survive is I need trade-ins, and I need trade-ins that will, be good enough for me to actually be able to buy and not have to put a lot of work into and resell. So here's the problem. We already have a situation where we have a shortage of decent used cars to be able to buy and sell, and we still have the same amount of dealers that need to eat in the system. So the fewer cars there are, the more demand from the dealer side there is, the higher the prices go. My worry is, as prices go up, and they're going to go up in some capacity, maybe not even every manufacturer, but whatever happens, if we have even the slightest tick of price increases, then you're going to have fewer trade-ins that come into the market, just simply because, people are not going to buy as many vehicles. The other thing we have is, with all of this tariff talk, even if it's not hitting people's pocketbooks, it's hitting their brain. We have this uncertainty that's happening, and uncertainty causes people to hold on to their money. That also means fewer vehicles purchased, fewer vehicles traded in. We already have a problem getting inventory. We just came out of spring selling season, and I have literally like 7 cars for sale right now. I had 150 cars a month and a half ago. Right now, I have 7 cars that I can sell. That's it. And I have to continuously throughout the summer be able to reload back to my 70, 80, 90 cars. But if all this is going on in the market, if we have fewer vehicles at auction that a lot of these few dealers are able to buy, prices go up, I'm not going to be able to buy cars. And this is just showing how the whole market is connected, where if new car dealers can't sell their cars, they can't get me cars, my used car prices have to go up. And it's just it's like an inverse situation where the demand for new cars goes down, the demand for used cars will go up in that scenario, because people who can't afford these new cars with these new car price hikes, where they're going to be pushed into the used car market, and then all the prices trickle down and go up from there.
I would think, from what I've heard, this past weekend was a huge weekend for new car sales. There were any number of people that were in the market and decided to move forward and do something prior to April 1st because of all the tariff talk and all the talk about incentives being cut back if there are tariffs. So I think a lot of people, I think what we will find is that during the last week of March, dealerships were able to pull a lot of April customers and maybe even May customers into that last week of March, where dealers will have taken an inordinate amount of trade-ins in during that last week, much more so than they would have anticipated. Many of those cars would perhaps, hopefully, be the cars that you will want to buy and will be available at auctions near you soon. The nice vehicles that they took in are going to be worth a premium, much more so than they've ever been.
And here's the thing about those nice vehicles you're talking about. They don't make their way to auctions anymore. Nissan dealers, specifically Jeep, Dodge, and Ram dealerships, right now they're becoming glorified used car dealers because their margins are so thin on their new car product that they're keeping on the used stuff, and they would rather sell these consumers used vehicles because they can make more money on the front end and still make that back end money. So a lot of that good stuff that I hear from a lot of car dealers that are in that upper echelon of range, they buy the more expensive stuff. It's not even making its way to the auction anymore. Franchise managers, franchise dealers are keeping that stuff now.
Well, they know that they have to step up for it now. It's either they step up for it or somebody else will. And they know they can't go to the sale and buy it. So it's cheaper for them to step up, pay more than they want to when the car's at their dealership, rather than go to a sale and pay even more, plus buy fees, plus transportation, plus. So yeah, the smart dealers are just going to figure out how to keep the nice trades. And we all know that there's not nearly as many of the 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old used cars around with low miles. So that any of those are going to bring top dollar if they do make it to the auctions, because if new car prices go up and more people find that they can no longer afford that new car, that pushes those people into the used car market, which means used car prices will be able to go up because they'll keep that spread between new and used enough that the people who can't afford new will buy the used, even if they're slightly overpriced. So I would think, just based on this last week of sales, that you'll see an influx at the auctions over the next couple of weeks. And then depending upon how sales pan out in April, how tariffs play a part in how sales play out in April, I think you could continue to see a shortage of any type of used cars available for a reasonable price at the auctions.
Yeah, and you're going to get into the situation too where we saw in the pandemic during the height of like market adjustments and stuff that people weren't just going out to buy cars if they really wanted to anymore. It was more of a need kind of thing because it was just way too expensive. We could get back to a situation there where any cars that people have, they're not even trading them. Even if they want to go buy a new car, they know that car's so valuable to keep, or they can't replace it for whatever they have in it, that they're not going to trade it in. So that's another big situation that we dealt with 3 years ago where, okay, shortage on top of shortage on top of shortage on top of shortage.
The only thing that could impact that would be that if the used car values rise quickly enough, that the increased value of your trade would be equal to or greater than the increased MSRP of the new car, so that the how much on your used car ultimately could be the same whether you would have bought the car in March or whether you were to buy the car in May, because the value of your used car went up enough to compensate. But if that's the case, if I had an extra used car today that I didn't need, and I think that there's going to continue to be a shortage of used cars, I think I'd hold on to my used car a little longer and maybe wait till May or June to try and sell it when dealers are desperate to get their hands on good quality used cars at a somewhat reasonable price.
But I feel like okay, let's say that the trade-in would cover the amount that the MSRPs are going up or whatever the amount is going up. That seems like an almost impossible thing for these dealerships and these manufacturers to market. So I feel like that's not going to give enough of a demand bump to really make all that much of a difference. And the average person's just not going to know that anyway.
Well, I agree with you. I'm just saying I think it can happen. I think we saw it happen during the pandemic because people said, I can't believe how much they gave me for my trade-in. Okay. This could be a repeat of what we saw during the pandemic, where we could have a 1 or 2 year time frame where used cars once again, rather than depreciating in value, are appreciating in value. Because we saw that during the pandemic. The reason people wouldn't turn their lease cars back in is because they could buy it for 25 to 35% below what the market value was. So I think we could potentially see something like that again. I think we could be headed down that path again. It's certainly uncommon to see it happen, say, twice in a 5-year period of time. But I think the impact of tariffs could bring that type of situation back.
So I heard also that I think Trump was saying that he could potentially have your car payment as some kind of write-off, like the interest that you're paying or whatever. Do you think that's going to do you think that will stimulate any kind of movement in the car market for incentives that are like that coming from the government? That I can't imagine that being all that much money to make a difference.
Well, first of all, that can't come from the government in the sense that you can't just do it as an executive order. Okay, it would have to be it would have to be baked into the tax code, so that, because at one time automobile interest that was paid on auto loans was tax deductible, and then they did away with that. So they would have to rewrite the tax code to specify exactly what type of domestic car or truck would qualify, because it would have to be an American-made vehicle, according to what they're talking about, that if you financed it, you would be able to get a tax deduction for the interest that you pay on that loan. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that interest couldn't be quite a bit. I mean, if the average transaction price suddenly gets north of $50,000, and people, let's say the average contract is for 50 grand, and the average interest rate, because incentives will go down, might end up being 7 or 8%.
That's $3,500 a year.
That can add up to a lot of interest that would be paid that could be potentially tax deductible. But it's a wonderful thing to say it. It's a completely other thing to figure out how to make it happen.
So I got a question for you. Do you feel like okay, let's say, all right, we get these, we get all the tariffs, we get price increases, the manufacturer, they pass on the consumer, sales basically stop. We get some big car market volume crash. Do you think that this administration, this is opinion, we have no clue, right? But do you feel like this administration would roll back some of those tariffs to help the automakers? What do you think happens in the case that these tariffs cause a volume crash in the car market? What happens at that point?
I don't know. There's a revolution. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, because the whole theory is, the whole concept of all this is, hey, there's going to be short-term pain for consumers, for all of us, for the long-term gain of rebuilding back our automotive manufacturing capabilities. And what happens with that is, we know the cost to manufacture is more expensive here, so that there's always going to be higher prices moving forward. I don't know if the whole market comes to a standstill. I don't know. You know, there's I believe economists are concerned today about stagflation. I believe many economists are concerned that over the next 12 to 18 months, we could fall into a recession. So who knows? There is such a high level of uncertainty that could just stop everybody in their tracks at a certain point. And I don't know if it's planned. I don't know if they want to have I don't know. I just know it's impacting how I spend my money. I know that between my payment on my new payment on my new car, which is $114 a month less than what it was on my old car, my insurance went down on the new car. I'm saving about $150 a month. But if you said to me, will you spend that money, that $150 a month you're saving? No, I won't. I'm afraid to. I just had this conversation with dear friends of mine Saturday night over dinner. So they said, well, when are you going out to Las Vegas to look for your winter place? I'm not. I'm afraid to. I'm just going to keep stashing my cash under my mattress. I'm afraid to, because I don't have any clear picture of what the future portends. And that to me is scary. And I think, I don't know if that'll frighten younger people, but my guess is it frightens people my age. And last time I checked, we're allegedly the ones that have the money.
Yeah, well, I can tell you what I'm doing for my business, and that's absolutely nothing right now. So I'm waiting to see what happens. We're not changing anything that we're like. I'm not rushing out now and paying over prices, or paying over what we would normally pay just so I can have inventory. And I can tell you, I'm very scared about what's going to happen. And that leads me to not go out and try to buy a lot of cars right now, because I'm just not sure what's going to happen. So even some of your fears that you're having,
yeah,
I mean, a younger guy usually doesn't have those kind of fears. We're a gung ho, but me being a business owner, I'm not sure what's going to happen, and honestly, I don't know how I could even prepare for it at this moment. And that's what you're talking about, the uncertainty. I wish I'm a doer, right? I have a team full of thinkers, because I'm the run with my head down, break stuff, and light a fire behind me that everybody else cleans up.
Yeah.
But even me in this scenario, I want to sit on my hands and wait and see what happens. So there's got to be a lot of other business owners that are in my situation too. And me and you, what we're doing right here, we might just cause a recession anyway, because we're not doing anything about it.
I used to always joke, it is incumbent upon each and every one of us to spend our money to keep our local economy going. And what allows people to do that is a certain sense of what's happening. And right now, as opposed to any type of certainty, it just feels as if there's chaos. And people tend not to react well when times are chaotic. It is harder to plan to do things. It is harder to accept spending when everything around you is chaotic. But when everything is kind of like copacetic and everybody's calm, cool, and collected, you're damn right you'll go spend $100 for two for dinner, because things are good. Okay, things are calm, cool, and collected. I can afford it right now. If you said to me, let's go out to dinner, let's go to a fancy restaurant, as long as you're buying. But if you're asking me to buy, ain't happening. I mean, literally, I am afraid. I have never been afraid to spend money in my life until now. Hell, I was never even afraid to spend the money I didn't have. Okay. And I lived beautifully doing that. Okay. But today, I'm afraid to spend the money I do have, because I just don't know where the hell we're headed. And I can't believe I'm the only guy thinking like that. I'm not buying like I'm the only one that's fearful. And I know you're fearful. And you're 40 years younger than me, or almost 40 years younger than me. This is one of those situations that overrides age, overrides generations. It is the type of situation that causes all to take a deep breath and look around and go, what the hell's going on here? And, that normally doesn't bode well for the economy. I'm just saying, in my experience.
Yeah, and Ray, I'm going to leave you with this for the day. Our good friend Ron says he got a dozen eggs for $5.67.
Okay.
And that might be a deal.
I don't know. I can't remember the last time I bought eggs, Ron. Is that a good deal or a bad deal?
I think they're going for like $1.50 a piece. So I think that's great. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. I'm
going to turn into an egg dealer. That's what we're going to do. We're going to buy some chickens, and we're going to start. Baby, my wife's listening right now. She's always wanting to hear my next business idea. That's what we're doing. Yeah. Chicken farmer. Don't I look like I sound like a chicken farmer? Don't I?
I think I don't mean this in any way to disrespect chicken farmers, but yeah, when I look at you, I think chicken farmer.
All right, Ray. Thank you. All right, everybody else, make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things. I appreciate you guys being here. And Ray, have a good day, buddy.
You do the same, my friend. It was fun.